They buy it on their own, though. We don't buy it for them.
Smart people. Oh, look at.
Can you hold 1 second?
Sure.
Okay. We're going to be going on in a minute here.
So.
He's having trouble with the intro, I think. See, now you'll be on here in a minute.
This is fun. I'm liking this.
Coming to you live on the Government Access Channel from Mario Bagnoni Chambers in beautiful downtown Erie. It's the Taxpayers Hotline Show with your host, Kaz Kwiatkowski.
Well, they took John out for a while. We don't know if he's coming back, but
We'll miss him.
and you're,
I'm married to Tulio. I am a citizen, a resident
yes,
of
you
Erie,
asked me to be on, and you
Pennsylvania.
had a subject that was interesting, I thought.
Yeah.
And, you've come to council to address it, but first we got a phone caller, and then we'll get back to you.
I think we should take that caller.
Go ahead, caller.
Hey, Cass, did you ever at that meeting at the Y and shit they'll ever put a handicap elevator in to get in from the outside in?
Are you a member of the committee with the mayor or not?
No.
I'm going to see if I can get you on that committee.
All right.
Because a friend of mine who's legally blind, he was on that committee, and they talk about issues like that.
All right.
And I think you'd be a good asset on there.
All right.
And I'll put your name down, see if the mayor will invite you to one of his roundtables he has.
Yeah.
He meets with citizens. You can bring that issue up.
Yeah.
And, it would help between, if the administration and he and I and you press him a little bit, maybe something will happen.
Yeah. And another thing I wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
Remember I mentioned about them black top and redo between State and Beach?
You mean the blacktop?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they did from Sassafras on.
On what street? 10th that was, wasn't it? What street was that on?
On 11th, between State and Beach.
On what street? 10th?
On 11th.
Oh, 11th.
Yeah, between State and Beach. They never touched that, remember? They said it needed milled down and redone, but they did the one on 11th between from Sassafras on down.
You mean heading west?
Yeah.
I'm sure with, I think they might be waiting. I'll tell you why. I'll check on it for you.
All right.
With Velocity Net putting all that money in there,
Yeah.
and right behind it would be, I think they're doing, I got to check on what the extent of the project is,
Right.
but I thought they were doing some stuff on 11th Street too.
Yeah.
Like a back parking lot.
They're doing stuff on 11th Street. They're redoing that parking lot over there.
I bet you what's going to happen is they'll wait until they get the whole project done before they pave the street.
Yeah.
They sometimes do that because if there's construction going on, like especially where Erie Insurance is, they're not going to pave roads because the big trucks will rip it up, and if they got cranes in there. So you know what? I'll check on it for you and see if that is part of the renovation for when they finish up on the old Rothrock building.
Yeah.
So that would be.
I want to ask you.
Yeah.
Ask that your partner if her father had Hector's. Hector's last name was DiTullio.
Yeah, we were just talking. In fact, I went to school with her husband.
Yeah, Hector's my husband's uncle.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
Why, did you eat there?
Yeah, I used to.
Used to, yeah, that's right. You can't.
Yeah,
See, the real gem there, though, was Angie DiTullio. That was the real gem.
she's a sweetheart.
That place is closed now.
Yeah, it's pretty sad.
Yeah, it was. Well, when Hector left, it was not quite the same place. It was.
Right.
I can remember when I was a young, aspiring political figure. We all used to stop there. Of course, I knew him from years ago when I lived in the neighborhood, and
Yeah.
we would go there, and God, he had his spaghetti was close to my mother's.
Yeah.
It was real close in the sauce and everything. So
Yeah.
We always have people ask us, do you have the recipe for the pasta fajoule?
I think that went with Angie.
I think that went with Angie too, because nobody's got it.
No?
No.
Wow.
Yeah, it's kind of sad something like that would go, but that was her legacy.
His kids must have didn't want the place, huh?
Yeah, but hey, thanks for calling.
Yeah, all right. Bye.
You know, he's talking about the streets.
Yeah.
And I live on Miller, and so Miller runs into Elmwood. And from 38th to Elmwood to 32nd Elmwood, they just paved that last week. Did it, whole thing, start to finish in one day. Why don't they do that on all the other streets? I mean, it was lightning
One
fast.
day, that's-
Everything.
That's hard to,
It's-
even my street, they did one time about last year.
I was shocked.
And it was only, my street's a 2-block street.
Uh-huh,
But it took them, because it was a tar and chip road,
uh-huh.
you know, in the old days, it took them about a week or so. So I don't know how they did. Did yours have a concrete layer underneath?
No, not that I know of.
Ah.
I mean, they took it up and.
Was it our
by the-
guys or was it, could you tell?
I couldn't tell. It was, I mean, it was a little bit chaotic in that area in the neighborhood, so.
Well, that's
I kinda
fast,
kept
but that's okay if they can do
fast.
it.
I was shocked. I wish they could do that. And
With ours, they had to scrape it, and then they had to let it settle, oil it and all that. And
They did scrape it, and they took it down, and then they put the black top and that finishing top and everything all lightning fast. It was amazing. So maybe they should try to do that other places.
I don't know who did it. That'd be interesting to find out.
Yeah, it would be.
I'd have to check, see who the contractor was and how they did it so quick compared to other streets take a lot longer by the time you mill it. I mean, it takes them more than a day to mill it sometimes.
I know.
And they milled it
Everything.
in one day.
It appeared to be, because one day it wasn't done, and the next day it was done.
Wow.
Yeah, so it would be a good question to find out who did that one.
So you brought up a good topic, and maybe we can stir some debate on it.
I'd love to stir a lot more than even debate.
Well, I never was an advocate of fluoridation.
Well-
And I think it was the biggest con job we ever had. And, you know, because when I was a young man, I know it happened, I think I was in high school, or it's hard to, I'd have to look back, but there were two times in the past that they had voted on this, non-binding, of course,
Yep.
but the public both times, you know, turned it down. They were against it entirely. And so I think the people, the politicians at that time, of course, we didn't have a water authority. We had a water department. And I think the mayor and the council at that time, you know, didn't go against the will of the people.
Well, you know, it's kind of frustrating, because we see the water authority, and I do know that there's another member of council who has spoken to them, and they're digging their heels in. They don't care.
Yeah,
But
well-
I recently got my news splash. It's the water authority's newsletter. And in this newsletter, they're talking about increasing the chlorine level. And everybody got it in their water bill, so this isn't a secret or anything like that. But what I did was I thought, gee, I'm going to look into this, because what does additional chlorine with the toxin hydrofluorosilicic acid do when you mix them together? And I just brought 2 small samples of actual research. One is from the Toxicological Journal, and another one is from the U.S. National Library of Medicine, National Institutes of Health in Toxicology. And both these research articles say that lead concentrations decrease over time with just chlorine in the water. But if you add hydrofluorosilicic acid, chlorine together, then over time you see higher lead levels. And so we're going to have more lead poisoning, lead toxicity. And as we know, Flint, Michigan, they have their own problem with lead. And it's
Do
sad.
they have
bec-
fluoride in Flint?
I don't know if they did, but they certainly do have a huge problem with lead poisoning.
Well, yeah, the water is,
Nobody wants to drink their water. Speaking of drinking the water, I was sitting here in the watching out in front there, and it was interesting to see the Culligan waterman bring water in.
Yeah.
Big bottles of water, and our water's supposed to be safe and good to drink, and like John said last week, there's a lot of people that drink bottled water.
Oh, yeah, you can see it, and around here, we don't pay for it. The employees, you know, some departments, they will pay for it on, you know, they pay the Culligan man on their own. It's not I can tell you, when I was controller, we never bought it. Okay, you know. So that was strictly department by department that bought it on their own.
You know, you're real savvy with dollars, I'm sure, because you were controller. Did you ever get a chance to see, we had talked about the Water Authority's CAFR?
No, I'm trying to get it, though.
Good luck.
I have it on we should be able to get it.
I would love to see it. It certainly would be interesting.
Oop, the phone went out. That was quick. But, you know, here's what bothers me. If you like fluoride, and when I was first married and my kids were young, the dentist said, you know, it was a good idea if the kids had fluoride. But just for a period of time.
It doesn't help you and I.
No, and what happened was, you know, was in the formative years, I guess. So, you know, it was little pills, I remember that.
In a controlled dose.
Yeah.
You knew exactly how much you were getting.
But how many kids have you heard, you know, because it was like it looked like candy. How many kids actually, you know.
Took too much?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they had to get the Epicat or get their stomach pumped out.
They don't make that anymore.
What, the Epicat?
No.
They don't.
You can't buy that.
Really? What is it?
It's not available.
It worked, I can tell
It
you.
worked.
Go ahead, caller.
Hello, let's get to the meat. Forget about fluoride.
Why? What do you mean forget about fluoride?
Forget fluoride. Fluoride's a waste. The dentists take care of that. And it's
Well, yeah, that's what we're trying to say, John, that, you know, it's causing a lot of women problems with thyroids and everything else.
well, that's true, but by the time you're into that now, and that got slammed through. I'm interested more in the debt.
The debt.
Remember I told you the bond's going to come back to kick us right in the teeth?
Yeah.
What did it do? It kicked us right in the teeth. Our increase will be up almost $4.2 million.
You're talking about the new payment.
Yes. I told you before, this baloney for roads, equipment, that was going to come back and kick us.
Well, John, nobody has the courage to do the other thing, which is raise taxes. And you know, you're going to have to pave the roads one way or the other.
True.
I
but
mean,
why take a bond out? These
well,
roads don't even last 5 years. How could you people up there, including you,
Yeah.
when you voted to extend the bond?
Well, we had to because there's no other way. They weren't going to do it any other way. I mean, I argued in the back room and I argued out in the podium as much as I could.
You should have voted no.
Well, yeah, but you know, John, just to make a Pyrrhic vote, you know, we got to go forward. I don't like the idea, and
Doesn't make sense.
And-
I remember a gentleman telling me
Yeah.
all he needed was 4 votes on city council.
Yep.
He'll push anything through.
and nobody will vote to raise taxes. They like the other thing, which is if you put it in a bond issue, it gets buried and it gets buried in the future.
Well, it looks good at the time because it says they're going to
Well, sure it
lower
does,
your
John.
rate.
Well, they always do that because
What happens when
it can't look like the stuff that we're catching up to us now is previous councils did that.
true, but
And
you know
so
what?
that's how they look at it. You know, they look at it like, well, I don't have to worry about it because 20 years from now, I won't be here. It'll be another council's worry.
Yeah, but you know, it's a good thing the water reserves take 6 votes, or else this new guy, he'll get his four votes.
Well, you can thank the council under Jimmy Thompson that took it back. That group took that, you know, it's up to about 12, it's a little over 12 million now. At one time, it was higher than that, and it was in danger of really going in a hole.
Because everybody was tapping it.
Right, so right now, what just so you know how it works, we give the city 4% every year.
Well, I think it's time to really, the mayor says he's going to buckle down, no new improvement or no new employees.
Well, no,
he's going to cut.
Yeah.
No, you should be working on that budget right now.
Well-
not in November when everybody comes up with their projection, what they need.
Well, they actually are working on it now. The problem is it won't be presented to council, which is bad. You know, the sooner you get to council, the better it is, but historically, they'll start working on it now. They'll go around to department heads, and they'll start putting numbers together, and then they'll come down to us sometime in November.
Well, I think we need a new director of finance there. Lichtenwalder's in a world of his own. He's biding his time to get his pension. We need someone who can sharpen his pencils and do this the right way. We got to privatize. We got to get rid of employees.
Well,
we got to make all the departments.
You got to remember that he works for the mayor, and every mayor runs their administration.
I understand
And
but he's just sticking around to get his pension.
No, let me tell you, of all the guys I work with, and I worked with about 4 or 5 in my time here, and then the few I worked with at the school district, he's one of the few that I would trust, that never lied to me. I mean, and his predecessor never did either, Ron Comork. I can't always speak that the ones before them were honest and truth, but, hey, he told council there was an error made, and he didn't throw any of his employees under the bus, but, he told us who it was. I mean, what happened,
Well, we got to start privatizing.
Well, John, that's easy to say, but when you're dealing with labor contracts,
Well, we can get away with that real easy.
Oh.
It looks like we're going to be going there anyways. Act 47.
well, if that comes to that,
Run
but
in and run it.
yeah, but you got that at the school district, okay? And you still have a teachers union right now, and you still have employees that are unionized, ASME and et cetera. So, we'll see what the school district's version of Act 47 does.
Well, I guess, what's our bond rating now?
That's a good question. The mayor had he didn't tell council, but I haven't seen a letter, but I heard it went up to A, I think, or
I
something.
think it went up.
Yeah, it did go up, I heard, but he didn't tell us ahead of time, and I haven't read my back mail yet.
Well, I have my doubts we're up there in A bond rating. Not when they see what the debt service is.
Well, go ahead.
No one in
Young
the
lady
right mind
wants
would
it.
give you an A bond rating.
Hang on one second.
Last week when I sat in and I
Yeah.
gave you some information at the end of the show, it was about other water entities and what they're doing mining their wastewater and how much money they're making on that.
Yeah.
And I think it would be a wonderful plan for us to explore that, disband the water authority as it is, turn around immediately and put in a new authority, or just have the city continue to assume the authority and have a water department, and then mine our wastewater. There are cities and,
What do they
places-
mine out of there?
What they're getting gold, they're getting silver, they're
Really?
getting aluminum. There's all sorts of wonderful things. It's like the new black gold, our sewage plant.
What people flush.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
Oh, yeah, I was down there, and it was,
And we should look into that because that could dig us out of our debt hole.
Well-
And then John would be happy.
Well, he won't be happy
Because they're going out for a $70 million bond.
well, if we take over the water authority now, okay, and we have that capability, we have to assume all their debt too.
Well,
But
If you're making $13 million a year, that debt will go away pretty
see,
fast.
I think the reason why they formed it and was convoluted, tell me if I'm right, John,
I'm listening.
when the ex-mayor started shipping water out to the suburbs, it made it tough for us to control anything. But authority can do things that a municipality can't.
That's
So,
true.
so if we take the water authority back, then we're under all these stipulations with the
That's where the
townships.
mayor used to balance his budget.
Yeah, well, he used to, and then,
Funds to balance the budget and not have a tax increase.
and that's where the water reserve was formed, from the money we got from there.
So why not disband this present authority? I mean, you're going to save money on the fluoride that John doesn't want to talk about right now, but you're going to save money
Going to
by...
save money on fluoride.
We'd have to
Fluoride?
see how much the debt
Well,
is and how much.
initially, when they first started putting fluoride in the water, and this was back in, I think it was 2002. So
Pretty close.
look about inflation. And when they first started putting the fluoride in, it was $70,000 a year. I would venture to say that is at least very comfortable, a six-figure plus number every year. Well, that's numbers, putting stuff in there. Number one, we're being mass medicated.
Who
Nobody-
gives the authority the right to prescribe medication
Thank
for
you.
people out there?
Well,
Exactly.
Well, the problem is, There's a good question, John. Because they're an independent authority,
Well, what we need to do is get a group like fighting for the Viaduct Bridge.
well, you have to do what Flippy did, which was when he did that.
He
So when they
had
put
his
the water-
appointees. He had Rush and
Well, that's what you do. You control the appointees. But
Right.
really, if they decide to go rogue, an authority, if an authority really doesn't want to take orders from a mayor or council, they can do it.
That's what I think we should do. I think we should disband it and then turn around and put in level-thinking people that care about. I mean, when you're talking about adding additional chlorine to the water, that's going to spike lead levels, and the research here proves it. I just brought 2. I could have brought 22.
Well, I remember
different-
they had a parade of experts that
Oh,
came.
yeah. All bought.
Well, and both sides had them, but the argument, I think, was already, settled.
It's
okay, I'll let
lobbying.
somebody go in. I probably got them all riled up out there now anyway.
No, you're okay. Call back later if you like.
Sure.
Okay.
Nice to talk to you, John.
But, that was the problem when they did that, I think there was one rebel, I call her, and that was Anna Markle. Mm-hmm. But, I thought it was a bad idea because it causes women problems.
A lot more than that, too.
Go ahead, caller.
Kaz, I think, didn't you just sign a long-term lease with the water
I
authority?
think we did, yeah. I'd have to check, but I remember we did vote on that's the problem. But if we take them back, and this is the problem now, you assume all their debt,
Yeah,
and then, because we created the water authority, on our CAFRA, it'll show that certain things are still, like the parking authority and the water authority and that, we're still responsible for them if they go belly up. And the problem right now is, they've gone hog wild in the area. There'll be a tremendous outcry.
yeah,
The big hoobos will come down here, and
yeah.
the ones out in the townships and all that will scream bloody murder.
Yeah.
We'll have to take it back. If we do take it back, it's gonna be, assuming their debt.
Yeah.
Can't we just take it back and then reform it? I mean, that's what they talked
I
about back
don't-
in 2002.
I don't know how the state views that, because it's under state law that we form these authorities, and they don't like hocus pocus, they don't like, just because you don't like who's in there, and that probably wouldn't go over too well. But the real issue,
I did call about something else.
Oh.
And,
I'll just say this, Rich, and I think what has to happen, the public has to get involved and force the issue. Go ahead.
you know how I feel about all authorities, Kaz. I mean, we could sit back and take a good look at every authority and question what they're doing. And the one that always jumps out at me is the Convention Center Authority or whatever, the Erie Events.
Yeah, we got rid of that, so that's pretty much a county one now.
Ones that just, drive me crazy with what they do with some vacant land and stuff like that. But Kaz, I called about, in Friday's paper, there were, and I didn't count them, but it was the smallest print I ever saw for sheriff sales. Mm-hmm. And
There was a ton of them, I heard.
I think there's probably a couple thousand, Cass. They were just page after page after page, and you could hardly read them without a magnifying
Well,
glass.
I just went by one on Pine Avenue, close to my house,
Yeah,
and it used to belong to a relative of mine, and it's been like tossed 2 or 3 times since then.
yeah.
And I got to believe it's a problem that.
Yeah, but Cass, here's what I thought about it, and here's what I came up with, and I might be out of school on this. That delinquency that was printed in the paper is for 2016, 17, and 18. Mm-hmm. And if people pay their 16 back taxes, they keep their house.
Yeah.
They don't have to come up with all the money.
Do they have to come up with a payment plan for the rest or not?
Not sure. I'm not sure about that.
Yeah.
But here's the event that happened in 2016 that,
G.
no, it's even worse than that. The Erie School District. In 2016, the Erie School District
Oh,
was
when they changed
allowed
it, yeah.
to bill us in April and then send us another bill in November that was due in the calendar year 2016. How many people in the 5th and 6th Ward that are a little bit senior said, I've always paid my bill in April, and didn't we pay our bill in April? What's this bill for November? It can't be right. Do you think
right
that,
on.
that there are people, and I'm sure there are,
That was the year they changed from, I think it was from December to mid-year.
Yeah.
no, they changed, actually, forever it was April 30th was school taxes. School was April, city May, county June, the end of the month. And that's when they were due previously.
Yeah.
But the school district somehow still billed us in 2016 in April, and then they also had one that had to be paid by November 30th.
Well, their thought process was that because school begins in September,
Yeah,
it didn't make sense to follow the city and county plan.
yeah,
And on that, I couldn't question them, because what we used to have to do at the school district was, because of the way the bills were, we always had to take a bridge loan.
yeah,
And,
yeah,
and that, because there was no money to start school with.
yeah.
And I thought, they did it one time, but you're right. What happened, they didn't do a good enough, PR campaign.
Good.
And I had a lady called me up the other day, and she was in tears. And they did it again this year, I think.
I'm not sure.
And
about
how
that
many
yet. Well,
people
And
have that kind of disposable income?
No, they don't.
anymore
And she
to
made-
just come up with
And
that
she-
additional payment out of their back
And
pocket?
she made a payment plan,
Oh, poor
but then they stung her again with her current bill. And it's like she's never going to get out of the hole. And, it's just,
Cass, and I took it a step further. I went to the county website, and I looked up my house, for instance, and you can click on one of the resources, and it'll show you your taxes you've paid over the years. I think it goes back to 2000 up to 2018. And as I'm looking through mine, school district 3,000, 3,000, 3,000, 3,000, 6,000, 3,000, 3,000, 3,000, and they didn't raise a millage. They didn't tell me I was going to make two payments. But when you look at that, and it's on the county website, that year I paid twice as much as I did the year before, and then the year after it dropped back down to where it should be. But no one ever explained that to anybody.
No,
Kath.
they-
No, I
that's
think
really,
he's got a really good point.
A boondoggle on everybody's part,
Well,
and it all started when I looked at how many people haven't paid their taxes, Kath. It's incredible. I
You
mean,
know who hasn't paid their taxes, and it's absolutely outstanding? It's a six-figure number,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
the
Yeah,
Jefferson
yeah,
Society.
yeah. Who-
They're just skating by, and they're hoping that they can ride in on the
But
shirt
that
tails
was
of the
just something
Jewish
I wanted
community.
to call about, especially with the news we got Saturday or Sunday,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it was, from Flowers about your bond. The bond payment's going to double from 3.5 to 7.5 or whatever the heck it is, and we're not prepared. Cash, you're going to play hell figuring out how to get enough money to pay for that. And I got a suggestion or two. Get rid of that damn golf course out in Harbor Creek.
I've suggested that every year, but
You don't need that, and we don't need city employees running that golf course out in Harbor Creek anyways. Let Harbor Creek run it, and there's a couple other things you can
I've always thought it's not a great money,
I don't think it makes I doubt if it makes money.
sometimes it does, but a lot of times it doesn't. It's not, in today's modern world, I don't think it's necessary.
There aren't as many golfers as there used to be, Cass. It's
Well,
a little
there's-
expensive, and these kids don't have the.
And there's a lot of courses out there right now.
It's just lost its favor with the next generation of golfers isn't coming. So you're going to lose people that are playing.
But I'm-
listen, I'm going to let you go because you're
Yeah.
on a hot topic there, and I'll talk to you soon.
Well, we'll talk this weekend.
Okay, bye.
Nice guy.
Yeah, he's been a long time caller. It just, that amongst many things, when you ride around town and you see all the vacant properties,
It's sad.
and getting them back in shape is gonna be the $1 million question. Go ahead, caller.
Hi, guys. Who was the mayor when the Water Authority was formed? Was that Felipe?
No, I think it was Savacchio.
Yeah, I thought Slovakia wasn't too real.
I don't know why I think it's Savacchio, I'd have to check, but,
Filippi's the one that put the fluoride in the
yeah.
water.
Absolutely, yeah. Now, what authority did he have over a water authority?
No, nothing except that the
Put the fluoride in.
the appointees, everybody has appointees. Council has some, the mayor has some, and there was a perfect storm that they had the right appointees in there that, I can remember people came here to council and there was an endless parade of, doctors, dentists, health professionals, people, both pro and con, mostly, I thought it was mostly con, but at the time, the board was, composed in such a way that, they put it in the water.
You know, it's not actual sodium fluoride that they're putting in our water anyways. It's hydrofluorosilicic acid, which is the waste product of fertilizer.
Ooh.
And if they were going to destroy or get rid of their waste product, it was going to cost something like $1.60 a gallon. So the fertilizer companies got this brainstorm, we're going to sell this to all the city water authorities and thereabouts to make some money. And now we pay them to dump their garbage in our drinking water, and it's frustrating.
Is it the fluoride waste product of aluminum foundries?
No, I think it's actual fertilizer, but there is a lot of aluminum in it.
Yeah, right. I thought it was a waste product of aluminum foundries. How do you make fertilizer?
And the thing of it is if you look at the MSDS sheet, I used to teach the Mr. Yuck program to the little kids in school, and if you look at the MSDS sheet, it is a toxic substance. It says, do not swallow it, do not put it on your skin, and I don't think it miraculously turns into something good just because the water authority dumps it into our water system.
Well, I mean, when my wife was told that was one of the possible reasons, women have thyroid problems, I said, we could take the money we're doing now, and if there's truly people out there in need that need fluoride tablets, that can't afford it, we could give them a voucher.
Absolutely.
Let them, if that's what their dentist wants, but to people my age, it's not gonna help us,
We get in a shower, probably most of us shower every day, and you get your dose of fluoride, now your dose of lead, because it's increasing lead levels in the water, and it takes 26 seconds. I practiced medicine for 20 years, and I did learn that your skin is the largest organ in your body. How do you avoid that? How do you avoid that? They are medicating you, me, this gentleman, everybody out there, and I didn't give them permission. When I practiced medicine, my patients were given what they call informed consent. And this is wrong. And
Yeah.
we have to stop it. Right now, I feel like I'm the only person speaking up about it, but I'm sure that there are other people.
I think you are, because I think a lot of people gave up. And
Well, I need to,
we need to rekindle that
we
now.
need to rekindle that. And so, I appreciate you having me on here to do that.
I'm not against chlorine,
No,
but, properly used.
actually, it says that chlorine without the hydrofluorosilicic acid is okay. As a matter of fact, it lowers lead levels. But the minute you put chlorine, hydrofluorosilicic acid together in the water system, it leaches lead from the pipes. It's not a good thing.
And we spent tons of money trying to clean up the lead problem.
It causes ADD, ADHD, Alzheimer's, dementia, heart disease, thyroid disease,
Diabetic
kidney
either.
disease. Pardon me?
No good for diabetics either.
No, it's not good for diabetics.
No,
but
that should be, look, if you want fluoride, we'll find a way to get it to the,
Belmont, Pennsylvania did it. They give out little tiny fluoride tablets to all the children whose parents think it's important.
and they can't afford it
And
by
they
need.
and they can't afford it.
How many countries in Europe have banned it?
Probably the majority of them. The United States is one of the only countries. I think Canada does it. I think Australia does it. But for the most part, most of the world does not fluoridate their water. But, you know, it's...
Remember when all the people used to come up to City Hall when Mario Bagnoni was against it, and they complained about it, and Flippy more or less thumbed their nose at the citizens, and he's the one that said put it in the water.
Well, yeah, he couldn't do it alone, and neither could council, but, you know, the authority, they did it with the approval and the assent. But I can remember, I don't know if you're as old as I am, but
I think so.
they had two vicious battles, if you remember.
I remember.
They had little pins made. I remember it's like vote, the same guy was making the pins, and all you put is a yes and a no on it. Vote no, vote yes to fluoride. And I can remember they had two very high stakes issues where the people said no. Of course, at that time, we didn't have an authority. We had a department.
Right.
And so luckily the council and the mayor at the time figured, you know, if the voters didn't want it, it was a bad idea. But now you have an authority where they don't answer to anybody by election. You know, they're appointed, so, you know, they were probably, I'm not saying coerced, but it sure seemed funny that all of a sudden, you know, that became an issue.
I haven't drank the water out of, you know, when you go to a bar and you get a mixed drink, you're drinking ice cubes that has fluoride in it, or they're
Well, yeah.
carbonated water, because that's city water, they carbonate it, and I drink bottled water, and I'm sure there's some fluoride in bottled water too, because there's fluoride in everything, and then they're giving us some more.
Yeah, you just got to know where you're buying it from, and you know, like a lot of, like she said, Mary said here, she was watching the Culligan man bringing water in, you know, and it depends how they do it, the process, whether, because I was watching something on TV, when they make beer and other stuff, they have to take the chlorine out, and that's a cost to them. So I'm wondering, you know, if they have to take all these chemicals out, maybe that's another reason
They do.
companies don't want to come here. I mean, they can deal with chlorine because that's all around the United States. But you got added chemicals, and that makes the process more expensive if you got to, you know, clean water up.
You know, the mayor's got his...
The Miller Brewing Company didn't come here because of the fluoride in the water, and the Water Authority wouldn't give them a dedicated line.
I have a
Wow.
question. Okay, so I'm not a beer drinker or anything, but,
Yeah.
you know, for many years, we didn't have fluoride, and then all of a sudden, they put the fluoride in the water, and then we lost the Kohler Brewing Company.
You wonder if that was it?
You know?
I don't know.
Did
I
they just
just-
say, hey, we can't afford to take the chlorine out, so we're going to close up? So there is another business that just went down?
I don't know. You know,
I think the timing is
they'd have
interesting.
to ask like Voodoo Beer or one of them.
They
know,
would probably know the history
These craft
of that.
brewer people. I'm going to ask one of them, but
They use regular water with fluoride in it. Those craft brewers, there's a lot of them.
They have to use
Yeah.
special equipment to take the fluoride out of the water.
Osmosis, and that's and you waste a lot of water doing that.
yeah. So I was talking with an old guy named Bill Feely. He used to run Keystone Beer, and I used to joke with him about, you know, Hemlock Lake water and Genesee and all that, and Rolling Rock, and he goes, you know, he said what they do, they take water and they make it H2O. That's it. You know, it's a chemical version of water, but you know that process does cost them money.
Okay, it's interesting to have her here today and talk about this.
Yeah, we may not get her all in today, so I might have to ask her back, but
Yay!
Thanks for being there, and I hope it takes hold and we get rid of this stuff.
Well,
I don't drink the water. I don't really want to give it to my pets.
I think if we can get the public stirred up a little bit, you know.
Come to city council and speak out with me. I'm going to talk again. They're going to get sick of hearing
That
me.
was great.
Thank you. Thank you so
Okay,
much.
I'll let it off here. See you guys later. Thanks.
Okay. Go ahead, you can talk a little bit.
I was thinking about it. I just wonder if there's any kind of correlation between when we lost Kohler Beer and...
I think it might have been like a perfect storm with a lot of things.
Uh-huh.
They got big and, you know, they tried to expand and they got bought out, and there's probably a lot of reasons. That could be one of them too, though.
You
But
know, you talk about all the empty lots and how eerie is. It's sad.
it would have been nice to have a brewery, you know.
Yeah.
Go ahead, caller.
Hey, I think Kohler Brewery went out in 1978 or 79.
You think it was that far back?
Oh, yes, I do, because I saved beer bottles and beer cans, the last ones they brewed.
Yeah.
It was late 70s when Kohler Beer went out of town.
Wow, I can't remember exactly, but you could be right.
Fluoride wasn't put in
I remember Flippy was on city council, and he was a
2002.
big push on that, on
Yeah.
fluoride. And
Yeah, when he
was
got-
on city council.
Yeah, and when he got to be mayor, then he made sure it happened.
Yeah, Kohler Beer was out of business like 20 years before fluoride was put in.
You could be right, because that factory laid there for a while.
Yeah, it was a long time ago when Kohler Beer went out. I remember that.
I remember a lot of their problem was they were trying to expand their product line, and it got expensive. And I don't think the people in Erie, especially the young kids my age, they view like a local brewery as like taboo. So
Now it's all the rage.
yeah, it is. But back then, they would rather buy a high-priced beer out of town. Don't you think, sir?
Kohler Beer was one of the best things ever was going on in Erie. They sponsored all kind of sporting teams and
But you could never-
donated to everything in this town. And Miller Brewing Company was the one that knocked them out, I understand.
Yeah, but you could never get the kids to admit to that, though.
Well, I don't know, but
I mean, they always like the other, the bigger names.
yeah. So I know that for a fact. Kohler Beer was out in the late 70s. They went out of business. And the fluoride didn't come in till, I remember Flippy was the big push on city council.
Yeah.
That he wanted to put that fluoride in the water. I remember that. And that was like what, in the early 2000s?
Yeah, it
when
was.
he was on council, or late 90s?
Mary said, well, it had to be after I got nominated, when I took over as controller,
Yeah.
because that was 2001.
Yeah.
So it was like, I think you said 2002, so that sounds about right. It was pretty early because he was only around one term.
Right.
And I have to confess, I'm not a beer drinker. I just know it went away, and so I was kind of guessing on the timeline. I'm glad you have it pinned down now.
Yeah, we kind of forget because it laid there so long that,
Yeah.
but
So, but it's a hot topic. I hope that, things like this generate more people. I talk to people about it all the time. And we need to fill this room out to the street and have people say enough is enough. Mass medication is wrong. When I practiced medicine, I had to have a license to prescribe medicine. I didn't just get my degree, and they didn't just automatically say, oh, go right for whatever you wanted. And this idea of dumping something in the water, what's next? Lithium? Prozac? What's next? And I think we have to call a halt to it. It's out of control. Other cities are doing it and stopping it. And if Erie is going to be the quality of life city, this should be a quality of life issue, having clean, safe drinking water. I mean, if we don't have that, what do we have?
you still there, sir? Oh, he must have hung up.
I think he was.
See, I think we can solve the problem. It's not like they always say, well, what's the solution?
So you don't think we could disband it and then, because this is what they talked about, even, not to quote this gentleman, but
Yeah.
Dr. Garvey, had a talk to where he was talking about the water authority. And he said that the water authority has gone back and forth between the city and the water authority. They've swapped hands numerous times. It's possible.
I guess it is, but if they just would, if the public if we can tell them, hey, look, it's got to go out. And the solution is very simple. Okay, there's going to be people out there that will argue their insurance will not buy it or they can't afford it. So, whatever money we're spending on it now,
Absolutely.
put it in a voucher system or,
And you will find that a lot of people, number one, they're paying to fluoridate the water for us. The numbers of people, it's basically children, and not all those parents are going to want fluoride. So we're probably going to be saving a lot of money.
and how many people are actually drinking the water? That'd be an interesting question.
I'm going to
I
tell
mean,
you,
we use it to wash, we use it to,
unfortunately, yeah. So
go ahead, caller.
Dirty Penny's back. Hey, have you
yeah.
ever checked your water report?
What do you mean?
They break down the impurities and the minerals in it.
No, I never did.
Well, you ought to look at that because it seems to me that the water department is going by the minimum amounts you're allowed per, per million or whatever. And the whole thing there is everything is within that range, but they do not put it exactly where it's at. It's between a range, like 1 and 5, and you don't know exactly what you're getting.
Exactly. And so let's look at a new mom, okay? She gets her baby and she decides she's going to bottle feed, okay? So she goes and she buys her baby formula, and you got to reconstitute it, but the baby formula has fluoride in it. So then she goes to the kitchen sink and she's adding more fluoride. Then she gives that little baby a bath. Again, the skin is the largest organ in the human body. How much fluoride does that baby, how many bottles? Some babies drink about 6, 7, 8 bottles a day. How much fluoride is that? Who is going to take care of these children who have ADD, ADHD, and all these neurological issues that are cropping up because of fluoride? Who's going to take care of them? The cost is going to be through the roof, and we're not going to have healthy caregivers to take care of them because everybody's getting poisoned. This is a serious issue, and it has to stop. It can't stop in 6 months. It can't stop in a year. There is a huge lawsuit that there is happening against the EPA, but we all know lawsuits can take 15 years. How many children are going to be seriously damaged in that time period?
Well, I know when my children were growing up, my wife never gave them any baby food.
Really?
Smart woman, she made it from your food in the house, huh?
Ate all the food for the babies there herself.
We had that
Smart.
little, what do you call it, that spinner?
That little meat food grinder?
Yeah.
Yes, smart wife.
Yeah, you know, whatever, like if my wife, well, you had to go by what, you could have carrots or something, so you mashed them up.
Yep, nothing like home-cooked food.
I'll tell you, we don't drink city water.
See, now there you go, John, that's a shame now, okay?
The reverse osmosis machine, and we purify all our water.
But John, you're paying for that water up front, and that's what's wrong. You're already paying for it, and you have to pay again to get it so you can drink it.
The only thing we use our water for is when we pay for that high sewer line, that's high-price sewer, and washing clothes and stuff like that. We don't drink the water. I buy bottled water. We have the reverse osmosis machine. That machine costs over $500.
They're expensive, I know.
And, it's just like a great big stainless steel little, I call it the old pressure cooker. Because you purify all the water in that, and you take it and you bottle it, and there you go.
And see, here's the problem, John. We're buying bottled water, and then we're having a tremendous problem with recycling. And then you got to be careful. You can't put those bottles in the sun because they leach poisonous chemicals. They can't be too cold in the winter. So, I mean, we're causing all kinds of grief.
Leave space in a bottle in the winter.
Pardon?
You leave space in a bottle in the winter, and it won't bust over. It will freeze.
Yeah,
but then it will fall.
But in summer, they claim that if you leave it out in the sun, it's going to leach, one way or the other,
And like you say, we've opened up this huge hornet's nest, and it's not necessary.
I chuckled at that gentleman was talking about Kohler.
Yeah.
I remember Kohler beers. They had the 5 beers, and then they went to Yacht Club and Old Pub.
Yeah.
Remember Yacht Club?
Yep, and they had Wonderbrow.
Yeah, and then they had the Old Pub, and I call it Panther. I won't say the
Oh,
right.
yeah, I know what you're going to say. Which one?
I just had to call in
Which one qualified for that moniker?
Old Pub and Yacht Club.
Well, they were both bad?
Yeah.
Were they like Bock beers or what?
No, they were the end of the
Oh. Well, what do they call that technically? That's not a Bock beer, right?
They had Pilsner, Lagers, Jackson Select.
It wasn't a Bock beer though, right?
Oh, they had a Bock beer around the holiday times, and that all they did was make that a little stronger. I think.
So what do you call the sludge at the end of the barrel?
They made it about like 6%.
Oh, the Wonderbrow was, I remember, too powerful that bartenders didn't like it because people could only buy about a can and a half.
Well, that's just like
They're
that
not
old
making
Patriots
any
beer
money on it.
Budweiser has now. Have you seen that?
What's that?
The old Patriots beer?
No, who's got that?
Budweiser. They made a Prohibition beer earlier in the year,
Oh.
and now they have the patriotic beer. It's red, white, and blue bottle with the horses, and that's like 5.4%.
Oh,
So it's very good.
yeah.
It's almost like a dark Yingling.
See, I'm not a dark beer guy as much, but
Well, that's the only beer I like. I like the
Really?
Bock beer and the real strong beer. I grew up on Kohler Lager.
you'd like that beer up in Canada, Moosehead or something.
Yeah.
That was dark stuff.
Yes. So, well, have a good afternoon. And like I say, raise hell. We'll get this done again, even if we have to take them to court.
Well, I remember, I wanted to appoint Ann DeMarco. Actually appointed somebody else, and Ann was unfortunately left us recently.
She was well versed, and she looked at everything from both sides.
Yeah, she was she was Mario's appointment,
True.
and she was fighting a losing battle at the end. But yeah, that's the real problem is that we can take care of those that need it, but there's millions of women out there that don't need that are getting problems that are significant to women. We're finding out that kids are probably getting over medicated now. So I think it's time to step back and say just do the minimal.
True.
Otherwise, what's next?
Hey, you know what? If you open that door and turn your back and you say, okay, I can't do anything about this, I'm afraid what's next.
Maybe everybody ought to get together and get a whole Edgar Snyder.
Well, I think it would be interesting if they would have done, and they were good. They knew they didn't want to do this. You can remember, John. We had
yes.
2 voting issues when you and I were young.
Right, and they were all defeated.
Right, but that time it was a department, not an authority.
They just kept bringing it back, and
You
it's
know,
just like the library. They didn't want the library down there, and bang, where is it?
Yep.
there's a judicial newsletter that I happened to come across, and in this newsletter, it talks about how they're getting ready and recommending to attorneys to get all ramped up here on the fluoride issue.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I can give you a copy of that.
Okay.
I think I did. But anyways,
Well, let
they...
anybody come in. I'm gone.
Okay.
Bye. But anyways, they talked about the fact that the African American community has a huge civil rights issue because it affects African Americans and Hispanics. The fluoride affects them
Really?
at an even greater risk. Oh, they have...
Is it a genetic thing, or?
People have asked me, and that's the only thing I can come up with.
Well, I mean, it affects women because
it affects women differently.
much more than men. I mean,
But African Americans and Hispanics, their problems are even greater, and the research shows it. And the Water Authority, those people down there, they're playing with fire because somebody's going to sue.
and now that we got,
I don't think they're protected like the vaccine, industry is. And God forbid they would ever be fortunate like that.
but we get, it's like when my wife did a lot of research, and I'm going, why?
I would like your wife.
Well, I mean, I feel bad because, here we are doing it, and if that's a cause,
It's making her life hell.
yeah, it's making a lot more people hell. It's just not me, but if you're right about, and Hispanics and Latinos and African Americans are a large part of the growing population.
And now,
And if that's going to be,
add the lead into it, and it's
and what did
here.
we do a few years ago? We were
I get
spending
you.
tons of money, grants and everything in the city to get rid of lead.
If this wasn't so serious, it would be absolutely laughable, and it's amazing.
Now, I know it's going to happen. We're going to get, the other side's going to, start yelling back.
Well, good. I
But
hope
it'd
they
be
do.
interesting about,
I don't know what they could yell about. 'Cause
let me ask you a
research
question.
doesn't support it.
I can't remember everybody who was here that time. Were more dentists for it or against it?
Well, you have to remember, and I know this from personal opinion, when medications come down the line, they're lobbied.
Yeah.
You get the drug
Well,
reps
that's
in
true.
there, and they tell you this, and how wonderful it is, and how great this is. They don't talk about all the side effects. Watch TV at night, and look at a drug commercial that comes up. The first 15 seconds of the commercial is
There's all
what it's
disclaimers.
for, is what it's for, and the last 45 seconds.
Disclaimers.
And all the things that'll hurt you, you know, all the things, you could die, you know?
Well, one of the things that my daughter was a pharmacist. And,
Really?
yeah, one of the things that, I found out was, before they got together and they decided that, it's a bad idea to have 2 and 3 pharmacists.
Really?
Because they can't like I talked to a pharmacist once and he said, if you're going to CVS and you're going to my place and you're going to Rexall or someplace, he said, and if I don't know what you're doing over there, I can't advise you properly.
That's right.
And same thing with the doctors, where you got 3 different doctors, 3 different pharmacies.
Medication reactions.
Yeah, which happens, like, you might be buying certain medication on the internet, and so, you're putting your pharmacist in it. He said, and here I'm held liable. And so, like you.
Now add the hydrofluorosillic acid in there,
Yeah.
and what kind of medication reaction are these people dealing with?
And that's why.
They don't even know it's because of that.
And, just the interaction with drug, I remember when I was, I had to take some pills, and I still do, and I went to my pharmacist, and he said, well, people don't know this, you should take it at this time, don't take this one, take this one with food, this is the reason why. Pharmacists were never allowed to do that in the old days. So now they can do that. They have more power than a doctor in some things. And so, but if you're not going there, if you don't tell him what you're taking, or like when you go to the doctor and he says, there's a reason why they ask you 6 times.
Any allergies? Do you have any medication
Yeah,
allergies?
and they
What
keep
kind of
asking you
medications are you
over
on?
and over. But yet we don't know, and you're right, when you combine everything you're taking at home, and like you're saying, certain foods have that, like you're doing toothpaste, you're doing baby formula, okay? Nobody calculates,
Think of how many bottles of formula some babies get in a day. How much fluoride one day, multiply that times 365. Multiply that times, most babies, if they're bottle fed,
Yeah.
will get it for 2 years.
and if you're the wrong baby, well, that's,
Yep,
not everybody is as strong as others.
that's right.
And if you're successful, it's your kid that's gonna be,
Who's gonna take care of these people?
you are.
It's scary. No, I retired.
I mean, not you, but you.
Oh, yeah, my money, my pocket. You're
Not
exactly
you, not
right.
that, I mean, the parent.
Yeah,
And-
it's very sad. This is a huge health issue. And if Erie is going to be the quality of life city, like the mayor wants it to be, we need to address this and stop it immediately.
And what do we find out about food now? We're the most medicated country.
When you look at the United States and where we sit on, the health ranking, we spend more money to make people healthy via drugs and whatnot, and we are one of the most unhealthy countries in the world.
Oh, they'll tell you, well, to save the wheat, they have to spray it.
Roundup. Oh, I was so thrilled with
And
that
that-
new thing about how Monsanto just got it in court. That's great. They deserve every penny they have to spend out. They lost that lawsuit.
Monsanto?
Monsanto lost a huge lawsuit. Yeah, huge.
Yeah, when I was in the Army,
Roundup is poison.
I always joke we had this bug spray that worked pretty good. Better than anything back home.
It's called Agent Orange.
No, it wasn't that, no, that wasn't that, but the pesticides, whatever was in there, was
Yeah.
definitely high-strength stuff.
Yeah.
But,
Well- On a real positive note, can I add a thought I had?
Yeah.
Before, because we're getting down to
yeah, we're each gonna give us
getting down to the wire
you gave us
here.
the 5-minute sign already.
I was thinking it'd be really fun. We have all these different ethnic backgrounds through Erie, and I'm a gardener. And people come to this country, and they've probably had to garden to grow their food just to survive.
Yeah.
And wouldn't it be fun to have a victory garden contest, okay, for the residents of Erie, anybody who wants to participate, and it would celebrate the diversity of Erie. It would
You give us the 1-minute sign.
gain community involvement, people would get closer to nature, and it would decrease hunger, improve the quality of life. people would have to sign up their garden, and they would have to be able to clean up their backyards, because
We
it would.
kind of gave that permission.
But I mean, have a contest where people
You
have
know,
first, second, and third prize,
You know-
1,500 and
You know, I think
100.
can pull it off?
Who?
The sisters.
I think the sisters would be great at that.
They're good at these community gardens right now. When I talk to them, I'm going to ask them about maybe getting some business people together to sponsor it.
Have a wonderful contest, and then,
Well, we used to have them, if you remember the old days, above 32nd Street, a lot of those empty properties were gardens.
absolutely.
And Italians and Polish just rented them.
You know, you look at, what foods would the Thai people grow in their garden? I know, married to an Italian, I
Yeah.
have oregano, I have marjoram, I have basil,
I know the one woman gave me permission.
Tomatoes.
She runs a restaurant. She gave me permission to go in her backyard and take her peppers.
Lucky you.
These
The
Thai
hot-
red babies.
Ooh, those are so good for you. They're good for your heart, good for your blood pressure.
I know, I tell my wife that. I said, it's good for your metabolism, but, that kind of thing, we kind of said that, council, and that'd be good to have a contest.
Well, it could eventually grow into something really big if we pulled it off
Maybe a nice
right.
farmer's market in here.
It'd be a great farmer's market, but the other thing is look at the Buffalo Garden Tour. Imagine the Erie Diversity Garden Tour. That would be, and it draws people. Buffalo is flooded with people.
Well,
to go on a
my
garden
grandfather used to have, I joked, used to have these trellises with grapes. I used to think I was in a
tour.
restaurant.
I have some.
I thought I was in a restaurant, sitting underneath it,
I have some.
and I still got a fig
I
tree.
should have brought you grapes. Oh, I'm
I
sorry.
still got a fig tree.
Oh.
I try every year, but it just becomes tougher. But I think, that's something, I'm going to talk to the sisters about that, because they're looking at ways to clean up empty fields. So if we can get a few fields cleaned out,
Wouldn't that be fun? And have a contest. And that would get people interested in their neighborhood, because they certainly don't want people touring through their neighborhood if it looks like a war zone.
Yeah.
And have people take pride in their area and show the diversity of all the ethnic backgrounds. I think it would be
Yeah,
great.
get some of this land that we don't know what to do with it, and, allow the public, if you live in a neighborhood,
Kaz, I want to thank you.
Well, you know what?
I've had so much fun.
If John, I'll give you a call, and if John doesn't come back and you want to continue this, we'll have you back on.
I would love it. And even if he comes back and he needs a day off, I'm there.
Okay, so stay by your phone.
I will.
I hate to be on there alone, so. Well, Mike, I guess you can, Mike's going to take us off pretty soon.
I think that's.
See you next week.
I will see you next.
Thank you for being here.
I really had fun. I did. It was interesting. I love the callers. The one gentleman.
You have been watching Taxpayers Hotline, recorded live from the fabulous city of Erie, Pennsylvania.
Put it in my phone. I think I got it, though.